Any forcible transfer in or deportation of people from occupied territory breaches international law. Well, that was a response from the UN Human Rights Office to a proposal from President Donald Trump for the United States to take over Gaza. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates and the Palestinian Authority have also rejected Trump's proposal. Trump said the U.S. would permanently resettle the Gaza Strip's Palestinian population in order for other countries in the region. Now, he's addressed a joint news conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. John Stremlau, Honorary Professor for International Relations at Wits University, joins us now. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. So Trump's declaration that the U.S. will, quote unquote, take over Gaza has received global criticism. What do you make of his remarks and the reaction from the Arab nations who've now fired back, rejecting that proposal?
Well, he has been incomprehensible to me, and in his strategy and his off-the-cuff remarks. It would be one thing if he was doing this on a talk radio show, but as President of the United States, it's patently absurd, and I just worry about the knock-on effects that to the U.S. as a reliable partner for any peace process.
What does that then mean from a humanitarian or international, law perspective? I mean, we've just said now in that introduction that any forcible transfer in or deportation of people from occupied territory breaches international law. That's according to the UN Human Rights Office. I mean, does Trump even care, or does he know of the implications of this?
No, he doesn't care at all, and frankly, I admire the efforts of the South Africans to raise the issue of plausible genocide in Gaza at the World Court. But the World Court and international law generally doesn't have much enforcement powers. However, what is important is the way in which this translates into domestic politics. I got very upset with the pro-Gaza movement that was so hard on Kamala Harris and probably didn't vote for her and stayed home. And they were critical of her. That was okay if she had been elected, but she wasn't. And now Trump has made Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, the happiest guy in the world, going back from this meeting where he was off the wall in promising ethnic cleansing and somehow the Riviera of Gaza, no mention of the West Bank, by the way, and resettling the Palestinians throughout the Middle East, which has been rejected, as you rightly point out.
And what do we make of that meeting? I mean, this was U.S. President Donald Trump's first meeting with another international president. It was his first one, and he chose a man who's been indicted by the ICC. What do we just make in terms of that? What does that symbolize in terms of the U.S.-Israeli relations?
It's unseemly in its appearance, but don't forget, Trump is himself a convicted felon, and Netanyahu has problems of his own on the legal front, and is thought to be wanting to hang on to the prime ministership, so he's immune. I mean, these guys, Netanyahu and Trump, dodge accountability in ways that would embarrass Jacob Zuma, but contrast dramatically with the responsible response that Cyril Ramaphosa did in the May 29th elections here. So that I think that South Africa really is an important voice for reason on the international stage, and it just might play a role down the road. But for the moment, both Ramaphosa and Lamola, their co-minister, are trying their best to try to talk some reason to a guy who's patently unreasonable in his thinking process. I mean, I can't really describe Donald Trump in any other way, then my gosh, he's thinking outside the box, so far out of the box that I'm not sure he's aware of any box that exists in the Middle East. His son-in-law was the author of in the first Trump administration of the Abraham Accords, and the Saudis made plain that they would only agree to recognize Israel if Israel granted a two-state solution for the poor suffering Palestinians. And here he is now embracing Netanyahu and ethnic cleansing.
And Prof, I want to bring in, South Africa, and I'm glad you actually mentioned it. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about how we can characterize the US-SA relations. The United States is, of course, South Africa's second largest trading partner. We know this. So how crucial are and what form then should South Africa's efforts to maintain and even expand the relationship with the US be at this time, whilst also, of course, addressing its concerns that it has with the US and some of the utterances made by Trump, whilst maintaining its sovereign position as a country?
Well, look, South Africa has to keep its own counsel, and I wouldn't second guess. We're lucky to have a responsible government here, unlike the Trump administration in the U.S. But the Trump administration does not reflect the complexities and range of opinions in the United States. And South African, certainly the ANC, knows very well that under the anti-apartheid movement, they appealed to a large swath of opinion, which now is predominant on the question of anti-apartheidism, and I think Americans have a residual goodwill towards South Africa that spans Republicans and Democrats. After all, PEPFAR was a Republican George W. Bush initiative back in the day. So it's got to separate Trump from the American body politic, but you can't do that in the short term. You have to figure out a way to make claim to him that South Africa is not going to be pushed around, but it will engage in responsible discourse about major issues like the land reform, which is clearly misunderstood by Trump, who's probably never read it.
Yeah.